My hands were shaking, my chest tightened, I could barely breathe. I ran, faster than I ever have, but no matter how fast I moved I could feel it, just behind me, close enough that the air felt wrong, close enough that I wasn't sure if I was still alone. I didn't dare look back. I found the door. I grabbed the handle, cold metal under my palm, my grip slipping from the sweat on my skin. I pulled, harder, harder. It wouldn't move. Then it did. It slammed shut behind me. And in that moment, I thought I was safe. Until I heard it. Not from behind the door, not from the darkness I had escaped, from right next to me. You shouldn't have opened it. I know that now, but it's too late. If I had known what was behind that door, I never would have gone near it. I wouldn't have stepped foot in that basement. I wouldn't have picked up the key. But at the time, it felt like just another room, another locked door in an old house. And I was too stupid to leave it alone. I grew up in a house that didn't belong to me. It belonged to my grandfather, then my father, and now by some cruel twist of fate, it belonged to me. A relic from a past I barely understood. A house filled with things that weren't mine. Stories I'd never been told, and a silence that stretched too long between its walls. At first glance, it was ordinary. 2 stories, wooden floors, the kind of house that creaks at night even when no one's moving. But the longer you stayed, the more you noticed it. The way the light flickered in certain rooms, but never in others. The way some doors swung shut on their own, but only when you weren't looking. The way the air felt thickest near the basement, like something was pressing against the walls from the inside. That basement was the only place I was told never to go, not in some dramatic, forbidden room way. No, it was worse than that. My father never warned me about it, never looked me in the eye and told me to stay away. He just ignored it. Completely. If I ever brought it up, if I asked why it was locked, why it felt colder than the rest of the house, he'd change the subject. Like he didn't hear me. When he died, I inherited the house, and the basement door was still locked. The door should have been like any other in the house, just wood and metal, something that could be opened and shut without a second thought. But the moment I put my hand on the handle, I knew something was wrong. The key was already in my pocket. I don't remember picking it up. I found it in a small, yellowed envelope tucked inside an old desk drawer. No note, no explanation. Just a single rusted key, cold to the touch. I shouldn't have used it, but the door was there, half hidden behind an old wooden dresser, pressed into the farthest corner of the basement, like someone had tried to erase it without actually removing it. It was small, slightly shorter than the other doors in the house. Its wood was darker, older, scarred with scratches, as if someone had clawed at it from the inside. And when I pressed the key into the lock, I felt it. Resistance. Like the door didn't want to open. For a second, I thought about stopping, but the lock turned, and the door creaked open. The air rushed out like something had been waiting for the seal to break. Cold, stale, wrong. Not just the kind of chill you feel in an old basement, but a deep, biting cold, the kind that wraps around your bones and makes your skin tighten. I lifted my flashlight. It barely cut through the dark. There was nothing but an empty space that shouldn't have existed. The room stretched deeper than the foundation of the house, farther than it should have. The walls were rough, uneven, not finished like the rest of the basement. And then I saw them. Deep, jagged grooves lining the walls, the floor, even the ceiling. Some ran in long, frenzied streaks. Others were clustered together, almost desperate, like someone had pressed their fingers into the wood, digging, scraping, trying to get out. My stomach twisted. I took a step inside. Something crunched under my foot. I looked down. An old notebook, its cover split down the middle, its pages torn and yellowed. I knelt, flipping it open. Most of the writing was faded, the ink smeared with age, but I could make out some of the words. Not full sentences, just phrases. Scattered. Panicked. I hear it breathing. No way out. Not alone. It sees me. It waits. I see you. That last one. It wasn't written in ink. It was carved into the page. I froze. The cold pressed against my back, like someone was standing right behind me. The flashlight flickered. My breath caught in my throat, and then in the darkness, a voice. Not loud. Not a scream. Not an echo. A whisper. I see you. I dropped the notebook. I ran. My feet hit the floor hard as I sprinted back through the doorway. I grabbed the edge of the door, yanked it shut, A deep, heavy slam echoed through the basement. I pressed my back against the wood, my chest rising and falling in frantic gasps. The room fell silent. Nothing moved. No breathing. No whispers. No footsteps following me. But as I reached for the key to lock the door, my hand hesitated. The wood was warm, like someone was pressing against the other side. I locked the basement door. I locked it twice. Then I dragged the heavy wooden dresser back in front of it the same way I had found it before. I even pushed a chair against the knob, as if that would make a difference. It shouldn't have been enough to make me feel safe. But it did. For a little while. The dreams started that night. I wasn't in my bed. I was standing at the top of the basement stairs. Barefoot. Wearing the same clothes I had been in before. The light above me flickered. The air was thick, pressing against my chest like I was breathing underwater. And at the bottom of the stairs, half hidden in the dark, I saw them. A group of figures standing motionless. Their silhouettes stretched unnaturally against the concrete floor, too tall, their shoulders hunched at odd angles. They didn't move, didn't breathe. But I could feel them watching me. One of them tilted its head. My throat closed. I wanted to run, wanted to wake up, but my feet wouldn't move. And then from the shadows, one of them stepped forward. Just one. The other stayed behind, melting into the dark. It was closer now. Close enough that I could see that its face wasn't a face at all. Just a stretched void, featureless, empty. It lifted a hand, reached toward me. I woke up gasping. The room was silent, too silent. My blanket was on the floor. My shirt was damp with sweat. But the worst part wasn't the dream. The worst part was the door. The basement door. It was open, just an inch. Just enough for someone or something to look through. The next morning I convinced myself I had forgotten to lock it properly. Maybe the house had settled overnight. Maybe the dresser shifted. Maybe I was just imagining things. But then other things started happening. Small things at first. I would wake up and my bedroom door would be open when I was sure I had shut it. I would hear footsteps in the hall at night, slow and deliberate. My keys, my phone, my wallet, they kept moving. I'd leave them on the kitchen counter only to find them in different rooms. One night, I woke up to the sound of scraping, a slow, dragging sound coming from downstairs. I stayed in bed listening. It lasted for nearly an hour. In the morning, I found the living room furniture rearranged, not like someone had knocked things over. No, the chairs were perfectly lined up against the wall. The coffee table was flipped upside down, and in the center of the room, the television had been turned around, facing the wall. I needed proof. I didn't want to tell anyone. Who would believe me? But I had to know I wasn't losing my mind. So I set up my old digital recorder, placed it in the living room overnight. No cameras, just audio. I let it run while I slept. The next morning I played it back. At first nothing, just the occasional creak of the house settling. Then at 2:47 a.m., a voice. Faint, distorted, a whisper, "Help me." I paused the audio, swallowed hard. I pressed play again, silence. Then, "Help me, let me in." I shut the recorder off. I didn't listen to the rest. Because the voice, it sounded like me. I didn't sleep after listening to the recording. I tried. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, telling myself it was nothing. That the recorder had picked up some interference. That I was tired, stressed, imagining things. But deep down I knew better. Because I recognized the voice. It was mine. And I knew I had never said those words. The next morning, I did something I should have done the moment I moved in. I started researching the house. I dug through old records, searched the address online, combed through news archives, and I found it. A name, Robert Hensley, the original owner. A man who had lived here decades before my grandfather. A man whose name had been buried under years of forgotten paperwork. A man who had disappeared without a trace. I found an old newspaper article. March 14th, 1952. Local man Robert Hensley reported missing. Last seen at home, no signs of forced entry, no leads. Neighbors recall seeing Hensley in the weeks leading up to his disappearance, but something had changed. They claimed he looked different, disturbed, kept to himself, muttered things under his breath. One neighbor, now deceased, reported hearing strange noises from the house at night, banging sounds, whispering, footsteps where there should have been none. Police found no evidence of foul play. Just an empty house. A locked basement door. That last part sent a shiver down my spine. because I knew exactly which door they were talking about. The more I searched, the more I found. Stories, rumors, things that should have been forgotten. People in town avoided talking about the house. Some called it cursed. Others just called it wrong. There was an old blog post, a paranormal investigator who had tried to look into it years ago. They wrote about experiencing cold spots, disembodied whispers, nightmares that followed them long after they left. They ended the post with a warning: if you live here, leave. And whatever you do, don't open the door in the basement. I closed my laptop. My hands were shaking because I had already opened it. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe I needed proof. Maybe I was just desperate for answers. But I went back down to the basement. My stomach twisted as I approached the door. I reached out, fingers trembling, pressed my palm against the wood, still warm, like something was breathing against the other side. I swallowed hard, pushed against it, just enough for the lock to rattle. And that's when I saw it. A message, carved into the inside of the door, hidden before. The words were rough, jagged, desperate. Do not open. It watches. A chill ran down my spine, because whoever had written that, they had been inside the room when they did. That's when things got worse. Much, much worse. It started with the footsteps. I'd hear them after midnight. Slow, deliberate. They always started from the far end of the hall. Then they would move, closer. Step, step, step. Stopping just outside my bedroom door. I never opened it. I never looked. The lights started acting up, not just flickering. They would turn off completely the moment I stepped near the basement door. I replaced the bulbs, checked the wiring. Nothing changed. Whenever I stood too close, the darkness would swallow me. The first time it happened, I was standing in the kitchen. I heard a soft click. Turned my head. The basement door handle was turning. Slowly. I couldn't move. I just stood there, watching, my heart hammering in my chest. Then, just as slowly as it had started, it stopped. And then one night, it banged. Loud, violent, like someone was slamming their fists against the door from the other side. I jumped out of bed, heart pounding. The banging continued. Boom, boom, boom. I grabbed my phone, shaking hands, dialing for help. Then it stopped. Silence. I didn't sleep the rest of the night, because I knew whatever was in there wasn't trying to get out. It was trying to get me to open the door again. I couldn't do this alone. I knew that now. The banging, the whispers, the nightmares. It was getting worse. I tried ignoring it. I tried sleeping with the lights on. I tried convincing myself it was just in my head. But I knew better. Something had come out of that room, and it wasn't going away. Getting help, I called Daniel, an old friend. Someone who wouldn't think I was crazy. I told him everything. He didn't laugh, didn't call me paranoid. He just listened. And then, after a long pause, he said, "We need to go back down there." I didn't want to. I really didn't want to. But deep down, I knew he was right. We met at my house the next evening. Daniel brought his camera, a voice recorder, and a small motion sensor. "If something is moving down there, we'll catch it," he said. I tried to ignore the feeling in my gut. The feeling that we weren't catching something. We were inviting it to show itself. We set up the camera in the basement, just a few feet from the door. The motion sensor went right next to it. Then, with Daniel beside me, I placed my hand on the knob. I already knew what I was going to find. The door was already unlocked. I hadn't touched the door since I locked it the last time, since I had pressed my back against it, heart pounding, forcing it shut. But now, it was open. Just a crack, just enough for someone to be watching from the other side. A sharp chill ran down my spine. Daniel swallowed hard. "Did you unlock it?" he asked. I shook my head. I didn't need to, because whatever was inside wasn't inside anymore. It had already gotten out. The basement had changed. We pushed the door open, stepping into the dark. The air felt different, thicker, heavy, like it was pressing down on us. The basement was not the same. The walls looked stretched, as if the space had gotten bigger, but somehow tighter. The light from our flashlights didn't reach as far as it should have. And the scratches, the deep, desperate claw marks on the walls, there were more of them now. Daniel stopped walking. "Did you see that?" I turned. "See what?" He was staring past me, into the farthest corner of the basement. "The shadows," he whispered. "They..." And then we both saw it. A shape, a figure, something that wasn't there before. Something that wasn't standing still. It moved, just slightly, enough for my stomach to drop. Then, a voice. A perfect replica of my own voice. Don't trust them. The words slithered out of the darkness. Daniel whipped around. What the hell was that? That wasn't me, I whispered. And then, he froze. His face drained of color. His mouth opened, but he didn't make a sound. I felt it before I saw it, the feeling of someone standing too close, of breath on the back of my neck. And then, I turned. Darkness. Instant. Complete. Our flashlights died at the same time. The cameras cut out. Everything was gone. And then, Daniel screamed. A sound I had never heard before. Raw. Terrified. Then silence. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the basement floor. My head throbbed. The air was cold. Too cold. I sat up, vision swimming. Daniel was gone. The door was shut. I scrambled to my feet, grabbing the handle, pulling, twisting. It wouldn't move. I pounded on the wood. Daniel. No answer. Nothing. Just the sound of my own ragged breathing. And then, a whisper. From the other side of the door. Let me in. I stood there, frozen. One hand still gripping the locked basement door, the other pressed against the wall for support. Daniel was gone. But that wasn't possible. I had just been with him. We were in the basement together. I heard him scream. And now, nothing. No police report. No memory of him existing. I tried calling his phone. No answer. I tried again. The automated voice responded, "This number is not in service." A sharp chill crept down my spine. I pulled up our last messages. They were gone. The text thread was completely empty. I opened my contacts. Daniel's name wasn't there. I called other friends. "Hey, do you know where Daniel is?" A pause. "Who?" "Daniel. My friend. He was just here last night." Silence. "I don't think you know anyone named Daniel." I hung up. My stomach twisted. Something was wrong. Terribly, horribly wrong. I needed proof. Something to remind myself that I wasn't losing my mind. I pulled up my photo gallery. I scrolled back, looking for the pictures we had taken together. The birthday party, the road trip last summer, the old videos of us laughing, talking, drinking. But they were different now. The pictures were still there, but Daniel wasn't in them. He was erased, as if he had never existed. In some photos, I was talking to empty space. In others, I was holding my arm around nothing. The road trip picture, there was just me, standing alone, smiling at the camera. My hands started shaking. I checked our old group photos. His face, gone. The space where he should have been was just an empty void, a black smudge, like something had reached in and wiped him away. My breath came fast and shallow. I tried to remember his last name. Daniel, what? But nothing came. Just a blank space where his name should have been. I was forgetting him. Just like everyone else had. I barely remember moving. Somehow I made it to the kitchen. My hands were still trembling when my phone buzzed. A notification. Voicemail. I didn't recognize the number. Something in my gut twisted as I clicked play. At first just static. Then, a voice. My voice. But it wasn't a recording I had made. It wasn't a call I had ever sent. And yet, it was me. And I was whispering. "You shouldn't have opened it." I dropped the phone. My pulse hammered in my ears. I picked it back up, hands slick with sweat. I replayed the voicemail. Same words, same voice. It was me. But I had never said those words, at least not yet. And the timestamp, it said the call was coming from inside the house. I didn't think. I didn't stop to grab my keys, my phone, or anything else. I just ran. Straight for the front door. I grabbed the handle, turned it, nothing. I twisted harder. It didn't move. Locked. Not from the inside, from the outside. Like something or someone had sealed me in. My pulse slammed against my ribs. I moved to the windows, tugged at the latches. They wouldn't budge. I picked up a chair, swung it with everything I had. It bounced off the glass. Not even a crack. I was trapped. I forced myself to breathe. I still had one way out, the car. I grabbed my keys from the kitchen counter and sprinted to the garage. Shoved the key into the ignition. Twisted it. Nothing. I tried again. The engine clicked, choked, but wouldn't turn over. I slammed my hands against the wheel, my whole body shaking. That's when I saw it. The basement door, visible through the hallway from the garage. It was open, just a crack. My stomach dropped, and then the power went out. Everything went dark. The house fell into complete silence. Then a creak, above me, in the attic, not the basement anymore. It was upstairs now. The footsteps were slow, deliberate, like it wanted me to know exactly where it was. Step, step. My hands clenched into fists. I pressed my back against the car, eyes locked on the ceiling. The footsteps reached the hallway outside my bedroom. And then, silence. I barely had time to breathe before it happened. A single knock, soft, controlled. It came from my bedroom door, a door that should have been closed, a door I hadn't touched. My throat tightened. Then, a whisper, my own voice, "Let me in." I couldn't move. The air felt thick like I was breathing underwater. The knock came again, louder, more urgent. "Let me in." Not a request, a command. I turned slowly, forcing myself to step into the hallway. The bedroom door was slightly ajar. Behind it, darkness. Something shifted in the shadows, something that had my voice. I took a step back, it took a step forward. A shape, a reflection of me, but wrong. Its head tilted, watching, its lips parted, curling into something that wasn't quite a smile. It took another step, then another. Closer. I ran, through the hallway, down the stairs, away from that voice, from that thing that wore my face. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to keep going, but the moment I reached the living room, I stopped, because I saw it. The mirror. It stood against the far wall, an old relic I'd barely noticed before, but now it was the only thing in the room that mattered, because in its reflection, I wasn't alone. My breath hitched. I turned my head slowly. Nothing was behind me, but in the mirror, there was a shadow, tall, watching, standing directly behind me. I stared. Frozen. It wasn't a trick of the light. It wasn't my imagination. It was real. The shadow shifted, tilted its head. Its shape was almost human, almost me. Then, it moved, one step closer. My pulse pounded in my skull. I raised a hand. The reflection didn't. My heart clenched. I moved my fingers. It stood completely still. Then it smiled, a slow, curling grin that split its face in the most unnatural way. And then it whispered, "You let me out." The room shuddered. The lights flickered. The reflection twitched, distorting like a corrupted file. My vision blurred. The floor beneath me tilted, and then static. The sound of a distorted, warped frequency filled the air. The mirror image lurched forward. Everything cut to black, silence. Then a whisper, soft, gentle, right next to my ear. "You let me out."